This is a jackhammer, the king of chatterbait. Or perhaps not anymore. If I ask you what is the best chatterbait on planet Earth, I wouldn't be surprised if 95% of you say it is the jackhammer. Not only does it catch fish, it catches big fish. However, the jackhammer is not omnipotent. There are certain scenarios when the jackhammer does not work well, such as in tangled wood cover or super dense vegetations, or in cold water or in certain pressure situations. After all, the jackhammer is not weedless, and it is a relatively large profile bait with aggressive vibration thanks to its large open hook and big blade design. Now, I'm a true believer in cast something different. Now, as we are facing ever-growing fishing pressure everywhere in the country, casting something different could mean to throw a lure with different color or different profile than other fishermen. But to me, the most effective way to make sure you are casting something different is to cast something impossible. Now, casting a chatterbait to the spots where everyone else are doing the same does not really give you any edge. Casting a chatterbait to the type of spots or cover where it is not known for will most likely get you the bite. For instance, when you are fishing for bass, suspending in a tangled laydown corral, and if you throw a jig or a packed Texas rig, and the fish are most likely to have seen dozens of similar things going by their eyes. However, these fish most likely would have never seen a chatterbait slowly crawling over the branches while emitting vibration, because typical chatterbaits, like jackhammer, does not go through woods very well. And if you are the only one who could present a chatterbait in that mass of branches without hung up, you will get bit. With that in mind, in the past few years, I've been on a mission to search for a chatterbait that could do all what the jackhammer could not do. I wanted to be able to come through virtually any types of cover while still retaining the hookup ratio similar to the open hook jackhammer. I also wanted to come with a more subtle profile than the jackhammer, while still be able to kick off vibration easily and quickly. So essentially, I wanted to retain all the great features offered by the original jackhammer while adding a superb snag-proof feature and a subtle profile. After going through a bunch of chatterbait offerings on the market, to be frank, unfortunately, none of the ones I tested was able to fully satisfy my expectation. And there are already a few snag-proof chatterbaits on the market who uses offset hooks in place of the open hook. Now, that might have solved most of the snag concern, but at the same time, the hookup ratio was just not good. Now, snag-proof with high hookup ratio, this criteria alone might sound contradictory just by itself. So after years of searching, I was almost ready to call it mission impossible until about a year ago, I found this little gem, the Jackall Super Break Blade. Now, this is a new product released by Jackall in September 2023, and I've been throwing it for the past year or so. And let me tell you, I have found the ultimate answer to my quest. The impossible game changer that exceeded all my expectations has arrived. This little chatterbait goes through weed, wood, and virtually any type of cover, like knife cutting through butter. It catches fish from cold water to highly pressured conditions thanks to its smaller profile. With its unique feature, I was able to fish it not only as a chatterbait, but as a blade bait, a lipless crankbait, and a jig in any types of cover or bottom composition. It has been my go-to chatterbait for the past year. So what makes it so unique? The blade for the entire series are made out of the thin metal. Now, it does not feature the bend like the original jackhammer blade. Its blade is only 0.3 millimeters thin, thinner than the jackhammer blade. For the small, light offerings, this thin metal blade design is super beneficial to ensure the vibration to kick off as soon as you want it to. Now, on the other hand, if you want a smaller or subtle presentation from the Jackhammer family, you will need to opt to the stealth blade. Now, the thick plastic blade unfortunately requires much longer distance and much higher speed for this bait to kick off vibration. But also, the blades are relatively small in size and much narrower than the jackhammers. The blade sizes increases slightly as the weight of the head goes up. Now, next, looking at the head design, it is a pretty realistic, cool designed fish head, more streamlined than the jackhammer head. Now, this head is made from tungsten compound resin. The link of the head to the blade resembles that of a jackhammer, but notably, part of the head actually protrudes behind the link ring where the ring closes. This design is to completely prevent the blade from slipping out through this crevice, which is a problem for several other brands of chatterbaits. Also worth pointing out, due to the head design and the narrow blade design, when in action, the blade and the head does not get in contact and knock like the jackhammer. It still emits sound, but just more subtle than a jackhammer. You can hear the difference from the underwater footage. Next, let's take a look at the most unique design features on this chatterbait, the whiskers. There are two pairs of long thin metal wires on the top side of the head and two single short wires on the bottom. The two top pairs spread out, guarding the top and the sides of the hook point, while the bottom set provides bouncy guard to prevent the bait from tipping over when going through wood or hard, dense vegetation, thus eliminating the majority of the chances to get snagged. Just to show you how much thought Jackall has put into the designing, the diameter of the top and bottom wires are different. Top is 0.3 millimeters while the bottom is 0.4. So the bottom wires are harder and recoils with more power than the top wire, essentially eliminates snagging. While the top wire provides just the right amount of force and space from a hook point to prevent hooking into cover, but still remaining an easy hookup of the fish. Actually, the hookup ratio after years use was actually similar to the open hook jackhammer, based on my experience. Truly realized my wish for a snag-proof chatterbait, but still having good hookup ratio. These bouncy metal wire guards are the center of uniqueness around this chatterbait. You just cannot find any better design on earth. And I'm talking about the most weedless snag-proof single hook bait that I've ever fished. And these whiskers work like a charm to getting the bait through weeds, lily pads, wood, and rocks as well. And let me tell you, these wire guards really shine. And the skirt features fine silicone material. For baits under a quarter ounce, 0.3 millimeters skirt material was used. The bait's 3/8 ounce or above features 0.5 millimeters silicone skirt. Now, I especially love the thin skirt design on the smaller models because their blades are small, the vibration they kick out are kind of subtle, and the thin skirt does not really cancel or dull the vibration. Now, we'll see more details in the upcoming underwater footages. The hook is coated with PTFE coatings, providing protection and smoothness for better penetration. The bait keeper is hand-tied PET material. The Jackall really have put a lot of thought into designing this bait. The Super Break blade has two categories based on weight. Now, from 1/8 ounce to quarter ounce, it is the Super Break blade Fine series. This is the first to come out last year, and recently Jackall had added the heavier offerings, including the 3/8 and half ounce models. They're called the Super Break blade. The difference between the two series is the size of a hook, apparently also the weight of a head, size of blade, the skirt material, as we just talked about a minute ago. The Fine series is what I have been throwing almost every trip in the past year. Its small profile and a subtle vibration is a huge compliment to the jackhammer, in my opinion. To match up with its subtlety and finesse orientation, I pair it with subtle plastic trailers without much kick. The two most used trailers so far has been the Yamamoto Shad-shaped worm for ultra finesse offering and the 3-inch Yamamoto Jackall. Now my thinking is to match the finesse profile and to avoid dulling the vibration. Now what I mean by this is, if you use a kicking trailer like the paddle tail or rage tail, the pace of the trailer sometimes will cancel or override the vibration from the blade. Keeping the trailer tail straight allows the trailer to synchronize with the blade's vibration. Now this is particularly the case with shad-shaped worm, and you can clearly see how the tail of the shad-shaped worm was mobilized to quiver and undulate with the skirt and the whole bait. Now thanks to Jackall's superb design, this little gem has really opened up a lot of possibilities where a traditional jackhammer could not effectively do. Now let's dive more into it. The jackhammers are okay going through weeds, but typically if you are dealing with thick vegetations, you'll have to keep it relatively high in the water column to avoid the thick and hard stem part of the vegetation. You certainly cannot drag it through a thick weed bed without clogging up the hook. Also, in wood cover or in lily pads, jackhammer is not the easiest to throw due to its open hook. But super break blade, on the other side, can be fished in all of these covers. For instance, you can throw it into the thickest part of the lily pad and have it go between the pads or even bump directly into the pad with absolutely no problem of getting snagged. When you bump into lily pads, it will slow down or stop for sure. But as you drag it over the pad, as soon as it overcomes the pad, the blade starts kicking immediately. No other little chatterbait is able to do this. This creates a great alternative for tackling post-spawn bass when they are ambushing bluegills in the lily pads. Now I used to throw a swim jig for this type of a pattern, but the swim jig does not really produce the vibration. So to introduce vibration, I'd have to match it up with thumping trailers such as the Minay Scrub from Striking or any other ragetail offerings. And that inevitably increases the overall profile and water displacement of the entire bait. Don't get me wrong, this is still a very effective setup to catch those post-spawn fish in the lily pads. But there are days the bass just simply don't want it. With the super break blade fine, because the blade is always kicking off vibration, I don't need to put any big thumping plastic on the back. I can actually keep the profile relatively subtle with the shad-shaped worm. The vibration really sends the tail to wiggle and undulate, which catches their attention in the thickest of the lily kingdom. If you think about it, is there any other setup that allows you to swim a finesse bait with powerful vibration through the middle of the thick lily pads? Now this is what I mean by casting something impossible. The fish sitting in the middle of the lily pad never would have seen such an offering. So usually within the first cast or two, if there is a fish, you will get bit. They just could not resist it. Now the wires do a great job avoiding snags while not adding a big thick jig brush seen on the other weedless chatterbaits. So it's able to maintain the finesse profile while still being snag proof with good hookup ratio. The other scenario where the super break blade fine shines like the Polaris in the night is cold water conditions. Now especially when water is in the 38 to 48 degrees Fahrenheit range. It works extremely well yo-yoing or bottom hopping in cold water, sort of like equivalent to lipless crankbait or the blade bait fished on the bottom, but minus the snagging part. The weed guard again does a phenomenal job of keeping the bait snag free totally. But more importantly, its all-metal thin blade design allows the bait to kick off vibration within a very short distance and at a very low speed, completely different from the finesse jackhammer stealth blade, which uses a thick plastic blade that does not kick until it reaches a relatively high speed. This feature allows you to do very small hops on the bottom. Just a couple inches pull, it vibrates, like you are seeing now underwater. the pondweed on the bottom is somewhere around 6 to 12 inches. You can hear the blade kick half the height of the weed. So essentially a couple of inches and it starts to vibrate. Now think about the conditions where blade baits or lipless crankbaits are typically bottom hopped or yo-yoed. Many times we have to deal with grass, weed line, or even wood cover, and under cold water conditions, you want to keep the hop short, not too far away from the bottom. And exposed treble hooks really limit the utility of liplets and blade baits in these conditions. But with this little gem, you can actually throw it anywhere and do the same as if with liplets or blade. In places where I fish, in late fall to late winter cold water conditions, a lot of fish actually sits on the bottom in the middle of the pondweed. Now I throw it to the weed bed, let it sink to the bottom, then start to yo-yo or bottom hop. Because it starts to kick right away, I can do very small yo-yos, just a couple inches. Now coupled with its small profile, the fish just cannot resist it. I've been crushing them doing this in water as low as 38 degrees. For big ones too. Now if you think about it, on the bottom of the thickest part of the weed bed, even on high pressured waters, the most bait presented at these spots are soft plastics. But with super break blade, I let it sink all the way to the bottom and then fish it either like a lipless crankbait or use it essentially like a jig. Drag on the bottom over the cover, then mix in a little bottom hopping, which kicks off vibration. You cannot achieve the result like this with either lipless, blade, or jig. This little gem again offers the fish a completely different look with vibration and a little noise. It's truly the power finesse or finesse power at its best. Now in addition, thanks to its relatively smaller blade size, if you decide to swim it for a short distance on the bottom, it does not come up quickly like other chatterbaits. This is a good feature to present chatterbait in deep water. To tackle deep water, Jackhammer has models over 3/4 or even 1 ounce. These huge heavy heads are to help retain the bait staying deep while retrieving, but they also diminishes the vibration it sends through the bait and also causes more snag on top of the open hook. But the Jackall Super Break Blade does not have this issue. The heavier models above 3/8 ounce do not come up easily, again thanks to the smaller blade size. Now in places I fish, the local lakes get a lot of fishing and tournament pressures, and oftentimes bass want some kind of like vibration or chatter to trigger the reaction bite, but not with those full-blown jackhammer type. And they prefer a tuned down version. And this bait really shines under these conditions as well. So, with all these unique features offered by the Super Break Blade and the Super Break Blade Fine, has it beaten the Jackhammer to be the new king of chatterbait? My answer is no. Now, there are two types of chatterbaits. Jackhammer is the aggressive, while the Super Break Blade is the subtle one. There are conditions where Jackhammer still completely dominates, especially under high water temperature, or for instance, when I was night fishing. They just want something really loud or really aggressive. But I do think the Super Break Blade is the only chatterbait you will need in addition to the Jackhammer. With both in hand, you will be able to tackle any situation with either. So I'd say Jackhammer will need to share the throne with the Super Break Blade. Oh, you know what will be really interesting? Imagine a Jackhammer come equipped with the weed guard whiskers on the Super Break Blade. I mean, could Jackall and Z-Man Evergreen please sit down and have a cup of coffee together? I'll pay for the coffee. I use 10 to 12 pound fluorocarbon line for the fine models and a 12 to 17 pound fluorocarbon for the heavier models. Now as far as rods and reel goes, for yo-yoing, I throw the fine models primarily on a composite rod for very cold water situations to provide a little delayed hook set. Like the jackhammer, a lot of the bite you just feel all of a sudden the vibration stops as you pull it up. Thanks to its blade design, even with the smallest blade, I have no problem feeling the vibration on the composite rod. The smallest 1/8 ounce fine model should also have no problem to be thrown on a spinning rod. For water that is above 45 degrees Fahrenheit, I throw the fine model on a mad bull. Now, fish at this water temperature still bites very well with this bait, and the stiffer mad bull have a lot of lifting power to make sure the hook penetrates well when I was fishing the covers. For the bigger version, I throw on the mad bull or my jackhammer rod, which is the 2014 Evolution Diablo. I pair with a 2020 Metanium HG for throwing the fine models and a 2018 Bantam for the normal bigger models. To be honest, I was kind of reluctant to initially let the bean spill, but on a second thought, the secretive old bass fishing community where the secret weapons are concealed for years has long gone. I'm not affiliated with Jackall or Z-Man. I'm simply pumped by this great design from Jackall that I believe will be the next big thing in chatterbait fishing. So here you have it. Now, the Super Break Blade has not been introduced officially into the US market, but you can find it from several reputable JDM tackle websites. Now, I'm sure there are more ways to fish the Super Break Blade, or more patterns to be discovered, more niche conditions to be found. Now, I'd love to hear how you fish it, to hear your story of using it for species other than bass, and most importantly, to learn from your creativity and knowledge. Together, we can develop more new techniques for fishing by sharing rather than concealing. Now go get your Super Break Blade before they are wiped out from those websites. Oh, by the way, don't forget to bet your buddy a couple of beers next time you fish together. Now odds are, with the Super Break Blade, you can not only expect more fish catchers, but also a couple beers for free. If you like this type of content, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now with that, tight lines until next time.
Oh gosh, big bass. Big bass. Oh my. 10 low. Woo! Woo! Look at this. Long yeah. Yeah.